Great. 1 hour, 3 minutes, and 27 seconds. Where should we start? Confidence vote?
China.
China. Okay, sure.
China. Because they started the money printer, it looks like, because this past week they have the Central Bank of China that
Len, you know that I prepared some new content for the show for this story. Hold on. Money print. Okay, this is a money printer story. Okay, hold on.
we gotta have the guy just doing that, just shilling out cash from his palm of his hand. So this past week, the Bank of China, which is their central bank, I like that the money printer update, they cut interest rates by 30 basis points, and it was from 2.3% now down to 2%. That is the biggest cut by the Chinese central bank since 2016. So it's been 8 years since they had this level of cut. And on top of this cut, we just learned that there's also a stimulus program that they put into place to help kickstart the economy. And China is eyeing a growth of 5% this year. That's their goal. They want to get there. And it looks like they're going to do it by hook or by crook. And they're going to use the central bank to help achieve that goal. But, let's be honest. When you do that, it's going to yield a whole fucking bunch of new problems as a result. But we'll get to deal with those later on. Well, 5% is what we want to do. It's $114 billion US. That's a stimulus. The markets absolutely loved it. It went up right away by a few percent. And this isn't the first time we've had some sort of something done by the people over there, the central bank or the government, because the Bank of China also provided $42 billion of assistance, financial assistance to companies and banks out there to buy and scoop up these unsold apartments that have already been built. So they were built, haven't been sold. Well, Bank of China is going to, they sent out $42 billion for essentially propping up the real estate market over there. And then just today, we had China also say that their banks have to cut rates on mortgages by 0.5%. So it looks like the real estate market is teetering on the brink of collapse over there. It's a big thing in China. And this thing, this is the second largest economy in the world. And they have to do this shit. And they're getting so much money from other countries because they don't have trade deficits. United States, name your European country, like just everywhere from the fucking buying shit from China. And they can't sustain this. Like, fuck, this is going to collapse. But who's going to collapse first? I think it's going to be Japan. I said they're the canary in the coal mine here. But either way, China's doing their part to try to be the leader in this race. And they're doing a good job of it. So kudos to them.
China issuing 1 trillion yuan of special bonds to stimulate consumption. Okay. China to issue another 1 trillion yuan via special bonds, not regular bonds, special bonds, to help local governments tackle debt problems. That's a winning strategy. And then some of the fiscal support measures could be unveiled as early as this week. That's from a Reuters article. Interesting, man. There's like clearly something happening around the world. We talked last week, I guess it was last week, right? When the Federal Reserve announced their rate cut. We talked last week about how 50 points without an immediate and visible domestic emergency is often a sign that there is an international problem brewing that might need dollar devaluation. Is this the problem?
I don't know. This is far beyond me to even comprehend because they're pegged, right? Their yuan is pegged to the US dollar.
Yeah.
I don't know what the value is. But now the question I have, I'm going into a tangent here. I'm going to the weeds. Because the Federal Reserve, they cut rates, and the fact that they're pegged, the yuan is pegged to US dollars, does the Bank of China also have to cut rates relatively close to the Federal Reserve or no? Because they're at 2.0% right now, and the Federal Reserve is what, 4.5? I can't remember what the last number. Either way, it's a big disparity between the two. So do they go up in tandem and go down in tandem because it's pegged? I don't know.
It's a good question, Len. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. Anything else you want to add to this?
Good luck if you're relying on the Chinese economy, I guess. Also 5%. That's going to be phantom growth. That's the other thing. They're notorious for this kind of phantom GDP. So.
Well, they could spin up a new city by tomorrow, and
then they'll spin up a new city, pay people to build it, and then 10 years later, pay the same people to remove the rubble from the ground.
Yeah.
Yep.
And it's all going to be added to the GDP.
100%. That's a perfect calculation for success.
Let's talk about my hero, Paul Pelosi. I like Paul. This guy, not only could he fend off hammer attacks, but this guy is an absolute legend when it comes to investing, because he managed to sell off around $500,000 of shares worth of Visa a couple of months ago. And this past week, it was announced that the Department of Justice, they plan to open up a lawsuit against Visa, saying that they illegally monopolized the U.S. debt market. There's claims that Visa illegally paid its rivals to keep them out of the market and hinder innovation. As a result, Visa holds about 60% share of the debt payments market and earns about $7 billion annually in debit swipe fees. This is as per the Department of Justice. So this just came out just past week, really interesting news, but you got to break this down further. He sold 2,000 shares in early July 1st, which I believe it was.
Right.
The price at that time of Visa, the price per share was $273, give or take.
Nice haul.
Today, so I mean, if you do 2,000 times 273, that's $546,000. The price today of Visa, at least earlier today, I saw $274, just a mere dollar difference.
Oh my goodness.
Sold it.
Paul's worst ever trade.
No, well, it was $290 a few weeks ago before this all transpired. So maybe, he knew something and he maybe acted a little sooner if he wasn't paper-handed, but I don't think he was paper-handed, because we all know that hammer, like rock, always beats paper. And this guy was able to fend off hammer. So he does not have paper hands. So either way, I don't know there's one thing that is difficult to argue here. This guy is an investing legend.
He's a wizard. Yeah. True market wizard. I have nothing to add to that story.
He's the man. I'm sure if you want to add anything to
I'm not saying anything. What is there to say? The guy, he's always in the news for one of two things: strange late night encounters or incredible investing decisions. There's no greater dichotomy. This is the duality of man, it's perfectly illustrated in Paul Pelosi.
So Afghanistan, I'm not sure if you heard this story. They want to join BRICS. And I'm not sure, what the fuck could Afghanistan provide the BRICS nation aside from a strong military? And this is all thanks to the abrupt bug out that the U.S. military had a few years ago. But it's not their poppy productivity, because it used to be lucrative, but apparently did some research. They're dropped quite a bit in poppy harvesting.
Or the
Taliban government is not very happy with this kind of stuff. So what the fuck did they present? I have no idea. But either way, it was said that it's listed that they want to have their application formally admitted to BRICS. And it was a video statement that was done. And it wasn't done in a cave. It was done in an actual office. The Taliban deputy spokesperson, Hamdullah Fitrat. And he said the Islamic Emirate of Afghanistan is eager to attend the coming BRICS meeting and has shared this request with the host country. They want to be at the table. And I guess, let's be honest, every fucking group needs their Chicago White Sox. Right? Afghanistan could fill this void, right?
Poorly managed, underachieving.
Right. But the one thing they don't do, they don't wear socks with their sandals, because even in Kabul, that is a fashion faux pas. So they will not wear their white socks. Either way, what are they going to do with this? Are they going to accept fucking Afghanistan? Doesn't make sense to me. Why the fuck does Afghanistan want to get it? Why would they even accept Afghanistan? They're not even a formal government that's recognized throughout the country. I have no fucking clue.
No idea. I mean, what are these guys doing? I haven't thought about Afghanistan since that botched, exit, where guys were hanging off the wings of planes or whatever. Well, I didn't think about Afghanistan. I never even heard of the country before 2001, and now I haven't thought about it in 3 years. Why? What do they bring to the table? Nothing.
I don't know.
Nothing. They're and guys Boomer in the chat is saying a couple of Apache helicopters lightly used, well maintained, lightly used, previously enjoyed Apache helicopters. But what else? What else do they have? I don't know. Not much.
But let's be honest, the last time they did any maintenance, it was when the U.S. military did
100%.
It's just been sitting there. I hope they put some gas stabilizer. Or else
good weather, so you don't have to put them in the garage. But yeah, I mean, those gaskets are not going to hold up forever.
No, and the paint is gonna get sandblasted off, so the camouflage paint is now gone. Right? There's nothing good. Whatever. Either hopefully they put him in a cave and stored him there properly, the way they should be doing it. Do you see the longshoreman strike in the United States?
I did. I did.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it started today, September 30th. Involves approximately 36 ports along the east and Gulf Coast of the United States. And this is a strike by the International Longshoremen's Association, the ILA. So obviously things are going to get a little bit more dicey. And, this is 85,000 dock workers in total. And we've had shipping problems in the past, not too distant past, this decade, in fact. We have all seen what happened. So maybe it might be time for people to go out and stock up on toilet paper before it becomes a premium product and it's no longer available. Might happen. Who the heck knows? In the West Coast, didn't we have also the port of LA go through strikes
A while ago?
Periodically, but it was June of this year.
Yeah.
So we're having in Canada, in BC, and isn't our ports in Vancouver also the people over there on strike too?
I mean, it's already the least efficient port in the world, I'm pretty sure, or close to it. So the strike can't really make it that much worse. But yeah, they're also in a labor action, I think.
Yeah. It's just like you add up all this shit together, and we had a brief rail strike in Canada too. Like there's nothing here that's redeeming and say, yeah, this is good stuff. Things are looking very bright. We're heading towards winter. Goods need to be shipped for people to heat their homes, eat, shit like that. I don't know. This is fucking scary.
There's a great tweet I saw today from the same. I gotta find it. It's on Marty's feed. Let me find it here. It's a woman who, she's a government official. She might be the labor secretary or something. Hold on, I gotta find this. Here she is. Okay. Yeah, what would happen if the dock worker strike goes on longer than a week? Here's the Commerce Secretary, Gina Raimondo. I have not been very focused on that. Well, maybe you should be. Marty points out that's the same woman who didn't know what the Bureau of Labor Statistics was.
Oh, that's right. Remember her? Yeah.
Same girl.
What is that?
Brutal. There's like a crisis of competence everywhere in the US government. I mean, it's everywhere in the world, but God, this woman just can't catch a break. These are easy questions. It's amazing. The answer is to make sure she gets interviewed by Caitlin Collins or whatever from CNN before she goes on any more unscripted interviews. That's the answer, I think.
Let's move on to Canada. Unless you want to talk about Japan briefly. I know you were talking offline in other chat about Japan.
I don't know anything about it. I can't find any hard evidence that the Nikkei is causing the Bitcoin price weakness.
Not even with respect to Bitcoin price. I mean, just in general over there.
Yeah, but I don't really care about Japan that much. Whatever. It's like you said, only a matter of time, I think. But
our games, man, are like PlayStation, Nintendo, it's going to impact the.
It's going to affect my PS5 Pro order.
For sure it will. Where do you think this shit is being?
Are you going to get a Pro? Are you going to get a Pro?
No fucking way, man. It's like $1,000 over here.
I know. I'm not going to get one either. I don't see the point. Until Sony produces games that actually look like they need it, I'm not going to do it.
It almost looks like Xbox 360 style games.
A separate topic here. I have been so underwhelmed with the PS5 in terms of graphical output, save for probably 5 or 6 titles. The God of War games were amazing. The Horizon games look amazing. Borderlands 3 look really good, but otherwise,
they could all be PS4 games, I think.
But they look worse on PS4. I have a really good TV, and so I'm pushing my PlayStation 5 to its limits, and so those games look great. But overall, the gap between the 3 and the 4 was pretty big. The gap between the 4 and the 5, I think, for 90% of titles has been a lot smaller.
Yeah. How come you're not playing on a CRT, like a 12-inch or 14-inch?
I have a 4K. I have a 4K 120 TV, and the PlayStation looks great, but not all the games have that output potential, and it sucks. Horizon Forbidden West looked incredible. The expansion for that game looked incredible. There's been a few other games that look really good too, but that one was a really notable one.
Anyway. Be a pro seller is going to be Grand Theft Auto 6 whenever that comes out.
I know.
That could be also PlayStation 6 system seller.
They're going to release a remastered 5 with the PlayStation 6, probably, the way these guys are carrying on.
Yeah, for sure. It makes sense. Well, go to North. We'll talk about international students
Sure.
because we discussed it last week for them applying for asylum in Canada. We got numbers, more concrete numbers this past week. So to give some context here, remember, these are for international students in Canada applying for asylum. Back in 2018, the number in that category that applied for asylum was 2,200 students. So, not a heck of a lot, but still, it's measurable. In 2023, that number jumped to 13,000. And even 2022, that number was as high as 5,300. So 2024, that number, I think, is going to be much higher than 13,000. In 2023, CBC reported that the majority of refugee claimants between 2018 and 2023 came from Mexico. At that time, around 9,000 claimants came from Mexico between that 5-year period of time. India at that time was a distant third, 3,200 claimants. I'm wondering now in 2023 and 2024 how it's going to look. I suspect there's going to be a lot more people from India that are going to be making the claim.
Fake students, fake asylum seekers, fake students. Yeah, of course. Mark Miller said this on TV last week.
They're not. I mean,
they have to all be sent back. They have to all be sent back. Anyone? Yeah, I hope so, but I'm not confident.
Well, so typically the process takes between months and years. It really depends on the backlog, the location, what part of the country they're in, getting documentation to prove the case. There's a lot to it. It's not just a blanket statement. Yours is going to take this much time. Every case is slightly different, but it could take months to years for
exactly the backlog. Yeah.
As for last year, the success rate to go from an asylum claim to refugee status was 78%, which it seems decent. It looks the majority of people coming here, more than 2/3, have a legitimate claim as per the Canadian government.
I don't buy that. I don't buy
these individuals.
I know. Whatever. Stats. I know. Yeah.
These individuals. I would love to know what are the grounds for there, because some people are what they call economic refugees. They're here because the economy is better, and that's why they're here. So they're not being persecuted because of religious beliefs or sexual orientation, or for a host of other reasons that may legitimize their claim as being a refugee. They are, I think there's going to be a lot of them that have made a claim in the past 2 years or so are going to be quote unquote economic refugees. So their case would, I think, ultimately be denied.
Are you confident in that though?
Yeah, I am. Because what happens once your case is denied, you don't have status to stay here anymore. So you either have to pick up and leave, or eventually you will be, whenever something happens, you get caught by the cops for speeding or running a red or something. They put you in jail and then you get sent back home. So eventually you can't stay underground forever and work for cash forever. Eventually you have to, something gives, and they get sent back home. But what happens when they get sent back home? Now, if you're making a claim for asylum, you're saying that shit back home
is so bad. Yeah.
Now, when you go back there.
Okay. But the way asylum works is that you can't apply for asylum in Canada if you're from India and went through another country on the way. It's not allowed. Yeah.
Correct.
Like these are horseshit. Yeah, they're horseshit. They're horseshit claims.
But a lot of them came directly from, like they flew in. It could have been a direct flight from Delhi, for instance.
I don't buy that.
So that just the reality of it. So we'll just assume that's the case. But think about this: when they go back home, when they're forced to get, and it will take years to get there, what happened? These individuals, their life is fucked. They made a stupid decision. They were given the wrong advice to stay here, because when they go back home, they're not going to get the same type of treatment from their government from which they turned their back to them. Yeah. So when they have to apply for documentation, like the Canadian version of the social insurance number or passport or whatever the fuck it is, the government's going to say, fuck you. You didn't like us before. We're going to put your application to the back of the line.
Totally agree.
It's going to be a tough life for them. So they made a piss poor decision. And anybody out there that's listening to this, I don't think anybody is, that's considering to make a claim for asylum, be fucking darn sure that your case is legitimately a refugee case, not some economic refugee case, because when it's ultimately denied and you get sent back home to where you came from, life is going to get fucking brutal back then, because the people over there, they're going to turn your back to you.
Totally. I agree with everything you said. Len, Pete Rose died.
And he never got into the Hall of Fame. Yep. And you think now, unfortunately, he was early 80, 81.
83. Yeah, 83.
Yeah. And
just saw it.
Pete Rose, till the end of his days, he has a sharp mind. I don't want to go into the Pete Rose tangent, but we're going to have to, unfortunately. If you watched videos of him in his advanced years talking about hitting, talking about facing he would rhyme off stats. I hit against Ferguson Jenkins, I hit 315. And he knew these fucking stats right away. He was able to rhyme it off. The guy, he lived and breathed baseball to the bitter end. And when he gave an analysis on hitting, even though he has 40 years since he's been playing, he still was able to come up with some great insight on how to improve your game. The guy was just a fucking legend. It's too bad what happened. And he'll get in the Hall. It's going to be unfortunate.
I think so too. Yeah, I think so too. Anyway, let's keep going. What other stories you got?
Well, very briefly, Canada's population grew in the second quarter by 250,000 people. That was 0.6%. So still Canada's population is growing at a measurable clip. But I think there's going to be a slowdown. And also, I think eventually it's going to go backwards in terms of population growth.
Really? Backwards?
Yeah. We're not having enough children here to sustain the population.
Yeah, we're not. Yeah, we're below replacement for sure. Yeah.
So the skilled workers, foreign workers, temporary workers, and the international students, eventually those permits are going to expire and go back. They'll have to go back. I think that's going to make a huge dent. Enough of a dent that you're going to see the number stay steady or even go down. It's not going to go down to 39 million again, but you're going to see it kind of hold steady because they're going to hold off in terms of issuing the documents to a lot of these folks to come into Canada, and it's going to be measured. You'll see it. The population growth, I think, it's going to stay stagnant.
I'm not convinced. And we talked about about this a month ago. The tier 4 and 5 desired immigrants, and this is from Canada's government websites. Tier 4 and 5 are people who have no skills, no education, and need no training for work. That's who we're looking for. We're actively seeking those people. There's a lot of those people out there who want to come here and use the social safety net that they did not pay for at the expense of other Canadians who did pay into it and who have no idea what's coming. Mike Campbell, we still have to schedule him because he had that fall, but he made a great point, man. No matter what you do in Canada, you will end up in the healthcare system at some point. You will. And by the time you end up in the healthcare system, if you're one of these people who's been, talking about welcome all immigrants, people who don't want immigration are racist or xenophobes, one of these fucking morons who's been saying this, if you're one of these fucking morons, then you're going to wind up in the healthcare system and not get the support you need. And it might cost you your life. It might. And it was all for, I don't know, so that you could have same day Amazon delivery or whatever. And this is not even a question of is Joey saying this because Amazon drivers are a different skin color, different religion, from a different country? No, I'm looking at the website that the immigration office runs and looking at the people they're after. And I'm telling you, the people who are coming in simply will never pay with taxes what they're going to take from the system. That's if they stay here by themselves. If they have a bunch of kids or bring their families or whatever, forget it. You have got to be in Bitcoin, not only because it's better money, but because you may need money to go next door for healthcare at some point, heaven forbid. But the idea that you're going to rely on the Canadian system, my man, you got a real shock coming. My wife is pregnant. If you've been to a Canadian hospital in the last little while, it's a fucking war zone, man. A war zone. I think I talked about when my Nona had a pacemaker put in almost a year ago now on the show. We went to visit her just after she was admitted. She didn't get a room. She's 92 years old. She didn't get a room for 48 hours. She was in the ER on the ground floor of a downtown Hamilton hospital, the heart hospital here in the city. It's a war zone. You do not want 1 million immigrants a year. Okay. 250,000 is 1 million annualized. You do not want that. You do not want people coming in with no skills. Okay. You do not want people coming in and taking jobs that Canadian kids would otherwise do. This is, I feel so strongly about this after talking to kids I used to coach, talking to friends of mine or colleagues of mine, even who have kids who are under 20, experiencing hardship because of just insane demographic choices we made. By the way, overwhelmingly male, like it's changed the likelihood, the database likelihood that we have like some kind of significant social unrest here, thanks to single males. We have totally gone the wrong direction on this. And I hope that it's fixed. It seems like the powers that be understand that they've made a mistake, but I don't have a lot of faith that it'll go the other direction because corporate interests demand it. It's an easy, I think, voter base for one party. And I just don't predict. I think it'll be a shell game. The immigration minister and other people in government seem unwilling to say that they're actually going to send people home. They just say we're going to reduce the number of temporary workers or temporary students or whatever, but they don't say that they're going to leave. It's more, it seems to me like a veiled, we're going to give citizenship.
No.
I think it sounds like that to me, Len. Like I don't hear anyone saying that people are going back. I don't hear anyone saying that.
No, once their status here expires, their legal status expires, they could stay here illegally, but then it's difficult to make ends meet. You don't have your SIM card. You have to work for cash. You're going to drive without a license. Like you're just playing roulette every day before you get caught. And when you do, then you're going to be sent back. That's from my belief that nothing is going to change in terms of the laws, and that people, once their status expires, they're not going to be asked to stay here. It's kind of sounds like to me that you think there may be a change in the laws, that they'll be flexible in terms of keeping them here even beyond.
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
I'm of the other
the
camp.
asylum claims. Like, let's see what happens with the asylum claimants, right? It's temporary. You have students, right, now claiming asylum. Let's see what happens. That'll be a pretty good indicator, right?
Yeah,
that's a good signpost.
And but it's going to take a year or two before we ultimately see some of this actually be measurable in terms of. So it's going to be some time, and by then, it's likely we'll have a different government. They may change the direction in which the immigration policy is going, and now you mentioned that in terms of people coming in, young kids and stuff. I think that's the way I understand it is, if somebody comes to Canada with kids, or they are here and have kids, I think that's the one of the more desirable situations, because those kids, although they're not going to be contributing to the economy initially, they will, once upon a time, they graduate from school and they would have a lifetime full of earnings in which they could contribute to Canada pension, should it still exist, and other things. So those are, and they're less likely to use the social system when they're young. Typically younger people are more healthy than older. So those are the ones you want to have here, because they just have more benefits than anything else.
Maybe, but the other side of that coin is they put other stresses on the system, right?
Sure.
Like schools, for example. Yeah. Exactly. And so there is no free ride, regardless of age. And part of the reason, I can stomach paying what I do in tax is because even if I don't use it, the hope is that when I have a kid in school, there's not going to be 50 kids, 30 of whom don't speak English, 20 of whom need IEPs, 25 of whom are disruptive and, it can't be taught, and one teacher in there. Like that's the hope, right? But I think what we're seeing here, and we talked about this in through the lens of Quebec maybe a month ago, the shortage of teachers they had leading into the September Open. And I think that every school board actually has this shortage, and maybe they're just not talking about it. But when I look and see, when I talk to parents, and when I kind of walk by the school in my neighborhood, even the schools in my neighborhood, there are a ton of kids for a school that's just not that big. And I see more portables now than I used to see. And, there's big schools opening in places where you think, man, there's already 3 huge schools here. Put another huge school here. Like, it just seems to me like the stresses are either right in your face with stuff like healthcare. It's an easy one, but there's other stresses too. And, that's, when you move in, another great example of this, we just talked about the Toronto floods over the summer or whatever, and how the infrastructure there is kind of crumbling and decaying. There's no free lunch when it comes to basic infrastructure either, sewage and roads. When you put, if you look at a place like Dundas or even like Hamilton Mountain, where there's a lot of single family detached homes. Heaven forbid you own one of those. What you see is people clamoring to put apartment buildings, 12, 16, 20 unit buildings in these neighborhoods. There's no infrastructure for that. Sewage can't handle that. Schools can't handle that. Roads can't handle that. The parking can't handle, like all the things that you as a taxpayer expect, because you chose to put roots down in that place with the understanding that you'd pay a higher level of taxes and receive a sort of a higher quality of life. It's taken from you. You didn't vote for that. And like, I think it does get sold as, yeah, we want young people coming in because they'll pay into the system, but they still don't give enough. There is an equilibrium somewhere, and we are past it, well past it, in my opinion. And even if we reduce the population, like you're saying we might, I don't agree with that, but even if we did, when is the equilibrium reached again? I don't think that it is. And I would even say that this is a sign. People talk about this like decay of competence and legitimacy of institutions, right? Like the politicians looting at the trough as the empire collapses. I think we're there. But just in case you didn't think we were there, this is another signpost that goes under discussed. We are so far past the equilibrium for stuff like infrastructure that it just can't be fixed. A great example of these floods in the States, right? You have this huge storm, it's whatever it is, 5 times the size of Katrina. And there's only 2 possible outcomes when you look and see the sort of shitty level of support that's being given by the US government to these places. Either the government actually doesn't prioritize this sort of thing, and so the taxes you're paying are completely in vain. And when the worst things happen to you, you'll be left to die naked in a swamp, while your kids scream hungry, starving, and injured. Or almost worse, the government is actually doing their best and they just fucking suck. And like, these are signposts. And I realize I strayed a bit from immigration here, but these are signposts, man. Like all this stuff, it's hard to imagine we get to a place where we reverse some of the damage that has led to this outcome. And immigration is only one piece of it. Education is only one piece of it. The expanding bureaucracy is only one piece of it. I don't think there's any coming back from a lot of this stuff. And so when we talk about why you should have Bitcoin, it is a bet that all these things continue to decay. And yeah, is that kind of a hard pill to swallow? It can be. But I think on the other side of the coin, you have this like really nice option that you can opt into with basically no friction at the moment that gives you an out should this continue to decline. And I think it's going to. Canada's immigration thing and, the sort of things we're discussing here right now, one piece of it. But man, you see this shit everywhere. And the disasters, they really shine a light on exactly how bad things are, in my opinion.
Well, I want to go back. You were talking about they're shoehorning these apartment buildings in places. This has been going on forever, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And you see the results. You see the results. Yeah.
And it makes, it's like Terap is saying, it's faster tax increases. And that's what it's faster property tax increase. They could just shove in a new high density residential unit and then collect a whole bunch of taxes as a result. And then, the infrastructure will just build it afterwards. But at that time, it takes years to get done. And the people's time and everything they're impacted because it takes them longer to get to and from work. And then having ambulances go to emergencies takes forever. So
for sure,
to get
that's
man. Problem. But this is what they do, and this is it's a short term, and that's how some elected official looks at it. They could just put it in, and it's good for the business side. It's good for the city or the town. And by the time he or she is gone, the problem isn't not their problem anymore. It's also another thing is you got to look at is stadiums and arenas too. And I'm going into it. A lot of them are, not all of them, but a lot of them are publicly funded to a degree. Some are not entirely, but there's a portion of it. And studies have shown that the public doesn't get anything back, not enough back from what they put in. So every dollar they put in, they don't get $1 or more in return in the long run. So it's a money losing endeavor. So it's kind of like you're funding rich individuals because they're kind of holding these cities hostage.
Citizens want the bread and circuses so bad that they'll literally pay a billionaire to build a stadium so they can continue to. It's insane. It is insane.
That is pathetic. That's something that should stop. It's a practice that should no longer be done. If they want to move, let them move. Let them go somewhere else.
I totally
Let
agree,
some
man.
other jabroni pick up the fucking tab. And you could at least, sucks to not have the team to cheer for, but at least you have some funding in which you could pay for hospitals, schools, roads, and whatever the fuck else.
Yeah.
So life will get incrementally better as a result. And that Saturday night, you will have to cheer for some other team, but that's just a snippet of time. The rest of your time, you're much better off. That's what you have to do. We got to fucking take a stand and say enough is enough. The money should be dedicated for the stuff that should be dedicated for, not for special interests, not for fucking rich businesses, not for rich. Fuck this shit, you know. And I was shocked, but I saw a video today about these stadiums and arenas. The lifespans of them are getting shorter,
of course,
by the decade.
And what is the cause for that, you think? Is it just the greed of the owners, or is it also just that the building quality is shit, materials are shit, professional competency is shit? Like I actually think there's a case to be made that it's some combination of the two. I look at Ivor Wynn here in Hamilton that was just built. It was built under 10 years ago, I'm pretty sure, maybe a little longer than 10 years ago now, but it's already falling apart in some places. And it's not used that often. It's not a concert venue very often. The Ticats only play, 16 games a year, mostly in the summer. And it looks to me like it's already having problems. There's already big repairs on that thing. And part of me is like, is this just, it's just everywhere and you can't get away from it. Like for sure, these things don't scale in the best of times, but if you start to put up shitty products, the scaling solution becomes much more difficult.
The Roman Colosseum is 2000 years old.
2 millennium old. Millennium.
Granted, like it's in a decay, but it's been seen earthquakes, war, thousands of years of sunshine, rain, and everything.
Empires have risen and fallen, and that thing is just standing.
Countries have been created. Yeah, still it's there. I mean, the Roman concrete, the technology, the ideas, and you see aqueducts are still there. The Pantheon's still there. There's so much that's still there. We don't do that kind of stuff now. It's now done for quick, efficient, like get this shit up and then we can repair it later on. It's not like a legacy you're trying to build. You're not building stuff for 1,000 years. You're trying to build stuff for like 5 or 10. In the arena's cases, maybe 20 or 25 years. And then another one comes up. And I think the reason why a lot of them come up too is because sightlines, they want to improve things. They want to have it in a better area of the city that is better transit or public transit or whatever. Also, the luxury boxes too is something else, and amenities. So you can imagine 25 years ago, what was deemed state of the art. We didn't have internet to the same degree we had now.
No.
Right? Like there's so much that's changed. And so you can understand then even like newer buildings that had still to like in the past 25 years, at least in baseball, they have visual obstructions in front of them. And you
can't see the fucking game. I know.
Like there's some seats you just can't. I can understand that if we're talking about Fenway Park, for a park that was built 100 years ago, where they put these columns to hold up the people above you. I can understand that. But man, like what the fuck? You built this in the 90s, even early 2000s, and still you couldn't come up to an idea like make every seat look fucking great. I don't know. It's bullshit. And then if this drives me nuts, and then they hold the fucking people hostage for more money. But whatever. Last story I'll bring up is that UBI in Canada, we have the National Framework for Guaranteed Livable Basic Income Act, C223. The act that was thrown out in Parliament. If this thing was passed, it would establish the first national framework for an unconditional guaranteed livable basic income for all persons in Canada over the age of 17. So the UBI folks are going to be pissed to hear that this failed in House of Commons, the C223. It was defeated 273 to 54.
Oof.
54. So from what I scanned quickly, I saw that a lot of NDP voted, and even I think some Liberals voted. So I don't think they were whipped into voting one way or another. I think it was a free vote. From what I could see, I could be wrong. This is just my quick analysis. But there is a second bill that's floating around. It's Bill S233. The first one was Bill C223. This is S233. So S233 is something that's been passed in the Senate. Like everything in a government, everything needs to be in triplicate, right? Like, so where's the third bill? We need a third bill somewhere. Either way, this was introduced in the Senate. It's currently in this committee after passing second reading. Still needs a third reading, and then after it passes that in committee, then it has to go to the House for their votes and so forth. So looking at this is not going to pass. We have an election coming in 12, 13 months maximum. And I don't think this is going to go through. So this UBI thing is going to be, it's going to die in a vine. It's maybe going to be an election issue. Probably not this time around, but in the future for sure. But this one, it's done.
People in this chat, not tonight, but in the past, have said that the Hail Mary for the Liberal Party will be UBI.
They're not going to go that further left than the NDP are. And people argue they are already there now, but no, they're not going to do that. No way.
I don't think so either. But interesting that this keeps coming up. Like, you're seeing more and more frequently now attempts to get this through legislation, right? And Legislative Assembly in Canada. Yeah, I know. Legislative Assembly in Canada so far has been resilient. Yeah, but I'm not convinced they'll stay that way. One of the things I don't understand, honestly, Len, is how the NDP have not managed to become a real contending party. It might just be poor leadership, but if I look around at the sort of, general vibe in Canada, it seems to me a lot of people want the things that the NDP at least used to stand for in principle. Stuff like, I would just call them handouts, honestly, at this point. I don't think there's any need to mince words. But they haven't been able to garner the support that their platform really should have been able to garner over the last, especially like 6 or 8 months, as cost of living has spiked, as all these other things have, gone what usually would have been their way. It's weird to have watched this happen. But they seem to have really squandered the opportunity. And now the Bloc are in the driver's seat. Do I have that right? They're
giving till October 29th, I think.
No, it's till December. I thought it was till the end of the year.
Oh, I'm wrong. Okay.
I think it's till the end of the year. Yeah.
Okay.
About like a farmer's subsidy or something like that, as well as in there. As
they want old age security to be bumped up between the ages of 65 and 70.
Yeah.
I'm going to guess this second number 71, but they want that number to be, and that's going to be a very costly addition. So it's going to be hard for the Liberals to add that and to keep their budget in check. That's not cheap.
Yeah.
But if they want to maintain power, they're going to have to do something. They have
to maintain power to what end? Like, this is the thing I don't get. And this is why I think, like, I'm not convinced they're going to lose the election, but if they think they're going to lose, like, maintaining power, what does it do for them? Nothing. Shouldn't they be trying to, like, position themselves for like a less than complete napalm election loss? Doesn't seem like they're doing that.
So in the vantage point from their point of view, the point of view from they're looking at, they're saying that they have a chance to right the ship and not get decimated. And I think right now they're estimated somewhere between 30 and 60 seats. I think
Mark is on Twitter talking about how they're going to lose party status.
I know he's talked about that quite a bit. And the way I look at it, there are some ridings out there that, and this applies not just to the Liberals, to even the Conservatives, Bloc, NDP. You can run a rock under that banner and people will vote that rock in. So it doesn't matter who's there, just because they support that party through and through. So I think there's more than 12 ridings, that are going to vote for Liberal. And I can name half a dozen right off the tip of my tongue. I can just name them off. And there's almost nothing that's going to stop them from voting Liberal. So I think that they are going to get their official party status. I'd be shocked if they don't. Man, to get less than 12. 2011 was, to date, their worst showing. And they still managed to get 31 seats, give or take. And it was all through the 416.
Yeah.
Montreal and a few in Vancouver. So those urban centers, they got their seats. And so that's the floor, I think. That's the floor. And the NDP, let's be honest, they're stuck because they're broke.
The 240,000 in the bank, right?
And they're 7 million in debt, or is that the number? I mean,
we saw the filing. I think the Bull Bitcoin guys were sharing the filing with us, or we were sharing it in our group chat there. Yeah, it's not good. Boomer
They
making a
don't have.
case too. Like we talked about this on the show. Harris, like, are the Liberals relying on Harris winning? I don't want to go down this road because I want to watch football and I have to edit this audio after we're done. But yeah, we're gonna have a lot of fun on this show over the next. I mean, we have fun anyways, but the, the next few weeks, 100% are gonna be nuts.
Oh my
And
God, it's a month away and change from the election.
I honestly was eating dinner with my wife today, and I said I haven't thought about the U.S. election almost at all. It's like coming up nowhere. It's all just like memes and nonsense, and it's so weird, so weird. There's a debate of the vice presidents like this week or next week. I'm pretty sure, right? It's got to be coming up.
Okay. How
Yeah.
about the other two? Are they still?
I think they're done. I think they're done. Insane. Like it's just so this
one and
whole
done
cycle. Yeah.
with the two candidates. I know he had one with the other guy.
Yeah.
but
Sleepy
one,
Joe.
like, fuck, man. You know, I wanted more fireworks. I wanted
Same.
more
You
sound
and me
bites.
both, man. Oh,
you
Tor
know
up
what?
in the
The guy
chat.
was-
The debate is tomorrow. The presidential candidate debate is tomorrow.
Are
I
you
didn't
going to
even
adjust
know
the
that.
time for the interview with?
I got Dave tomorrow at 7, but yeah, I mean,
I might have to go earlier. Oh,
no,
these start
I
later,
mean,
these debates, right?
it'll start at 9 probably.
Yeah, so you're
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah. Anyway,
Whatever.
God bless everyone. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. Yeah, see you tomorrow. David St. Ange. Until then, take care of yourselves.
And don't be a cock.